Hi, this is Kendall Boyson, professional life and recovery coach, and you're listening to Encouragementology, the practice of instilling hope. Hi there. Thanks for joining me. On this show, we are exploring risk versus reward and the fear that keeps you stuck. If you're someone who shies away from taking risks because you're terrified of failure, I'm speaking to you today. We're diving deep into the tension between risk and reward, why people stay stuck, and how you can break free from the cycle of fear. We'll explore why fear holds us back, how to bounce back when things don't go as planned, and most importantly, how to take calculated risks that can lead to growth, success, and a life that feels more aligned with your true potential. In this episode, you're going to learn about the courage to fail and why it's one of the most powerful tools you can have in your personal and professional development. We'll unpack the fears that keep us from stepping out of our comfort zones, why those fears don't always match reality, and how embracing the unknown can actually lead to greater rewards than staying in the safety of what's familiar. By the end of the episode, you'll have some tangible ways to start taking those risks, handling failure with grace, and moving forward into the growth you deserve. Let's break this down. Risk is the possibility of losing something of value, whether it's time, energy, money, or reputation. Reward is what you gain in return: success, growth, opportunity, and personal development. The key to moving forward is understanding that with risk comes reward. But it's not always immediate, and it's not always what you expect. Why are we afraid to take risks? It all comes back to fear of failing, fear of judgment, and fear of the unknown. But the reality is, failure is not the end. It's a step in the process of learning, growth, and progress. Taking risks is a natural part of growth. Every successful person has faced failure, rejection, and even the sting of loss. The difference between those who succeed and those who stay stagnant is the ability to push past those fears and keep moving forward. It's about embracing the discomfort and trusting that the reward will be worth the risk. All right, let's slow it down for a moment and get a little honest with ourselves. When it comes to risk, what's your default setting? Do you lean in with curiosity, or do you instinctively lean back with caution? Most of us have a reflex that kicks in the moment something feels unknown. Or, let's be real, a little scary. Let's walk through a few questions. Just answer quietly to yourself. No pressure, no right or wrong, just awareness. When was the last time you said no to something simply because it felt risky? Did you pause to consider the potential reward? Or did fear make the decision for you? Do you tend to overthink or immediately shut down new opportunities? What goes through your mind first? The possibility of it working or everything that could go wrong? What story are you telling yourself about failure? That it's permanent? Embarrassing? That it means something about you as a person? Have you ever stayed in a place like a job, a relationship, or a routine just because it felt safe? Even if it wasn't fulfilling? Even if a part of you was craving more? Here's the thing. We're not wired to love risk. We're wired to avoid danger, to seek stability. But there's a big difference between being safe and being stuck. So take a deep breath and ask yourself, am I saying no to growth just because I'm afraid to stumble along the way? And maybe more importantly, what could change if I gave myself permission to try, even if I might fail? Before we move on, I want you to write this down or just say it to yourself. The risk I've been avoiding is, then finish the sentence. The risk I've been avoiding is, hold on to it. We're going to keep unpacking that as we move through this episode. So let's go a little deeper into this idea of fear and how it plays tricks on us, often without us even realizing it. I came across this great piece from Psychology Today that puts words to something so many of us experience: the fear of failure that silently pulls the strings behind our decisions. Let's take a look at what's really happening when we hold ourselves back and what we can do to shift that pattern. Shonda Morales asks, is fear of failure holding you back? Do not fear mistakes. There are none. Easy for me to say. Well, no, not really. Even though one of my favorite personal mistakes ultimately led to the successful publishing of my first book. This Miles Davis quote, which is posted visibly in my office, is a reminder that there is always a valuable lesson in our perceived mistakes, even the wretchedly painful ones that in the moment appear cataclysmic and irreversible. This is not to say that we would never alter some of our decisions given the retrospective opportunity, but in reality, the best we can do is learn from our missteps, make amends if necessary, and usher our newfound knowledge into the present, allowing it to inform our future with wisdom. The words we choose to describe our blunders matter. Our minds often transform a mere thought into a hard fact, often without our consent. A simple mistake can easily morph into a big fat failure if we aren't cautious about how we perceive it. Which is why I have long bristled at the word failure, finding it too finite, too definite, and much too all or nothing in its formulation. And because I have repeatedly observed how failure paralyzes us in an unending cycle of fearing more of the same, I'm opposed to even permitting it full word status outside of mental quotation marks, and often refer to it as the other F word. It's infinitely more productive, motivating, and sanity preserving to practice reframing the concepts of mistakes and failures as the potential learning opportunities they are. When it comes to risking failure, each of us falls somewhere on the continuum from grippingly risk-averse to consummate adrenaline junkie. Ideally, we want to find ourselves in the center, making wise, deliberate decisions without allowing fear to immobilize us. In my younger years, perfectionist tendencies and the fear of failure kept me playing it safe most of the time. As I've grown older, I've learned to nudge and occasionally lovingly shove myself more towards the center. As with learning any new skill, this was initially frightening, but it has become less so with practice. Despite my earlier risk aversion, I have nevertheless managed to experience my share of setbacks. It's just as important, if not more so, to discuss our losses than to underscore our wins. Success is decidedly not linear. Colin Jost of Saturday Night Live said it better than I could ever. We have to remember that progress isn't just a straight line upward. It's a weird roller coaster where sometimes you're screaming for joy and other times you're barfing in your own face. So here are some simple steps to help mitigate the risk and recover from the inevitable setbacks. Number 1, designate where you fall on the risk-taking continuum. Do you tend to play it safe, hang back, and think long and hard about decisions? Do you often regret not having jumped in and experienced adventures, large or small? Or do you find yourself frequently regretting impulsive decisions? Are you regularly drawn to that addictive adrenaline rush from just going for it? Regardless of where you fall on the spectrum, reserve judgment about who you are and how you have behaved in the past. This is not about self-criticism, but about kind awareness. Self-acceptance must first occur before we can create any mindful positive change. If you tend to be risk adverse, your next step is to work on stepping out of your comfort zone in tiny, manageable ways. Granted, we may not make as many missteps if we were always playing it safe, but without some risk, we can't live up to our full potential and end up stunting opportunities for growth. If you're more of a natural risk taker, your objective is to stop and notice your bodily sensations before you leap, paying attention to what they may be communicating, and honing your ability to notice and follow your intuition over time. Number 2, if you are deliberating about whether to take a leap, regardless of whether you are risk-averse or risk-adoring, first get quiet in order to listen to your body as it provides valuable information. You must physically stop to do this. Briefly scan through the body from head to toe, staying curious about any sensations and making mental notes of what you observe. If it's difficult to notice any sensations at all, don't be discouraged. Each time you practice this mindful break, you increase your familiarity with your own unique body sensations, becoming more in tune with what is normal and what is not for you. Typically, we experience sensations tied to emotions somewhere between the head and the stomach or lower back. For example, you might feel muscle tension in your head, neck, or back. Perhaps it feels like an elephant has taken a seat atop your chest, or butterflies are trapped in your stomach. These unpleasant sensations commonly signal an unhealthy, unwise choice. Conversely, ask yourself if there is a general sense of ease, calm, and relaxed muscles. This usually means that you're proceeding in the right direction. Even if you're skilled at noticing sensations, it isn't always clear what they represent. Or, as in my case, we recognize the sensations but doubt the message out of fear, avoidance, or denial. Since we know that attempting something new often entails some level of fear, our goal is to distinguish between natural trepidation, take the risk, or our intuition screaming, "No, consider turning back." This too requires practice and never entirely becomes foolproof. Provided we gather facts and heed our intuition, we can be assured that we've done our best in that moment whether we succeed immediately or not. And number 3, if you're recovering from a mistake, take a deep breath and offer yourself compassion for the suffering. Remind yourself that you're not alone. Everyone has a similar story to share. I know this may be irritating to hear right now, but it will ring true later. Regardless of whether you didn't notice informative body sensations, interpreted them wrong, or chose not to heed them, there is always a lesson to be learned, even if it's not immediately clear. Sometimes the best you can do is breathe, put one foot in front of the other, refuse to let fear keep you down, and use what you've learned to wisely, kindly inform your next decision. In a nutshell, this article really calls out how sneaky fear of failure can be. It doesn't always show up as panic or dread. Sometimes it's procrastination. Sometimes it's perfectionism. Or maybe it's that little voice saying, "Why bother?" Shonda breaks it down in a super approachable way, showing how fear messes with our motivation and keeps us playing small. But the best part, it's not about magically becoming fearless. It's about getting clear on your values and goals so you can move through fear with purpose, not avoid it out of habit. All right, now that we've talked about that, it's time to get out of our heads and get into some movement. Because here's the thing, clarity doesn't come before action, it comes from action. And if you've been waiting until you're 100% confident or perfectly prepared, you'll be waiting forever. Let's walk through a few simple but powerful steps to help you shift your mindset and start taking some calculated risks without letting fear be in the driver's seat. Are you ready? Perfect. Step 1, get clear on your blank. What is your definition of reward? Get clear on that. Start by asking yourself, what do I actually want out of this? Is it growth, confidence, a new opportunity, a deeper relationship? The more personal and meaningful the reward is to you, the more motivation you'll have to push through the discomfort of risk. So write it down. Keep it close. That's your why. Step 2, identify a small, safe risk. You don't have to jump off the cliff. You just have to lean off the edge a little. Think about a decision or action you've been putting off because of fear. Now, shrink it. What's the micro risk version of that action? Instead of quitting the job, maybe you schedule a networking call. Instead of sharing that big idea publicly, maybe you test it in a safe space first. Small risks still count, and they help you build momentum. Step 3, set a rebound plan, not a backup plan, a rebound plan. Let's stop pretending we're not afraid of failing and just plan for it. What would you do if it didn't go well? Who would you talk to? What would you learn? What's one way you could bounce back? This isn't about bracing for the worst. It's about reminding yourself you can handle it. Failure doesn't stop when you already know how to recover. Step 4, speak it into existence. Say your plan out loud. Share it with somebody you trust. There is something powerful about vocalizing what you're going to do. It takes it from an idea to an intention. Bonus points if that person can lovingly call you in when you start shrinking back. Accountability is a secret weapon here. And step 5, take imperfect action and reflect. Now, do the thing. Not perfectly, not dramatically, just honestly. Afterward, take 5 minutes to reflect. What did you learn? What surprised you? What would you try differently next time? This is how you turn risk into a process, not just a one-time leap. Because every step you take, even the shaky ones, expands your capacity for more. Remember, taking a risk doesn't mean you're reckless. It means you're brave enough to bet on yourself. And here's the truth. Nothing changes if nothing changes. So take the step, trust the process, and know that whether you fly, stumble, or pivot, you're still moving forward. Now that we've acknowledged how fear can keep us stuck, let's flip the conversation and talk about what happens when we actually lean into risk. I found this article from Right as Rain that's all about learning through failure, and I love the way it reframes risk as something not just necessary, but beneficial. Emily Boynton enlightens us with why taking risks help you grow and how to do it. Some of life's most meaningful moments come from taking a risk, whether it's applying for a job, going on a first date, or learning a new skill. Still, knowing you want to take a risk is one thing. The ability to tolerate uncertainty and show yourself compassion if you fail is another. Failure isn't fun or comfortable, so why are we risking it again? Taking risks creates opportunities, enables growth, and spurs creativity. In psychology, there are 2 types of motivations, avoidant and approach. Sometimes you do things because you want to avoid negative outcomes, like failure. And sometimes you do things because you want to achieve positive outcomes, like success. We want to live in the space where we embrace challenges, where we don't know if things will work. You get a whole lot of creativity when you stay in that stance. It's the growth edge of approach motivation. This comes from Anne Browning, Associate Dean of Wellbeing at UW-Madison. Say you want to launch a new project at work, but you're scared your boss won't like it or it won't perform well. Or maybe you've always wanted to learn to improv, but you're worried you'll make a fool of yourself. The avoidant behavior would be not to pitch the project or take the improv class. In this case, you stay safe and avoid unknown or negative outcomes. But you're also stagnant, which can come with its own discomfort in the form of what ifs. The approach behavior is to move towards your goals, even though they come with risks. You might fail, but you also might learn and grow. Plus, you might succeed. It's also worth noting that attempting to avoid failure is a losing game. Humans are fallible. We are messy and we make mistakes. So even if you're doing your level best to avoid failure, you will still experience it. Accepting the reality that you fail from time to time can help you prepare for mishaps so that they are less jarring and can enable you to build resilience. There are 4 interconnected elements that help give you the courage to take risks and the skills to cope with difficult emotions that can arise when you face setbacks. Number 1, reframe failure. Failure is often painful because it feels personal. A mediocre performance review can feel like a judgment of your own personhood and not just your work. The healthiest way to cope with failure is to treat it as an isolated event or outcome. It doesn't or shouldn't shine a light on how you feel about yourself as a person. This comes from Jonathan Brown, a social psychologist who teaches at the University of Washington. You want to reframe failure as an event that occurred, not something that defines who you are. This means failing at something doesn't mean you're a failure. We are all bad at things from time to time. This doesn't make us bad, it makes us human. One way to reframe failure is to practice unconditional positive self-regard, a concept that comes from positive psychology that basically states self-worth is inherent and it's attached to how well you perform. For example, you might respond to a failure with thoughts like this: I am a good person who happened to make a mistake, and I'm a good person who happened to fail at, you fill in the blanks. It also helps to think of failure as a part of the path to success. Imagine failure as a pit stop on the road to your goals. Sometimes you need to refill your tank or check your tires to get where you want to go. Number 2, practice self-compassion. Even if you reframe failure, it can still sting. Self-compassion prevents you from becoming frozen by helping you process what happened. Browning says, what we see is folks have a much better developmental trajectory if they have more self-compassion. Practice self-compassion by letting yourself notice the emotions that come after a setback. Your instinct might be to jump to problem solver mode, but try to give yourself the space to acknowledge and experience your feelings. The action orientation can be emotional avoidance, of just starting over and spinning your wheels instead of saying, wow, that was tough. It helps us stay in an approach state of mind where we continue to try and try again. We see much more persistence and resilience if someone processes that cycle instead of avoiding it. One way to do this is to give yourself the grace you would give a friend if they faced the same failure or made the same mistake. Think about what you would say to them, and then try to give yourself that same care and tenderness. Number 3, reflect on your emotions and needs. Similar to slowing down enough to be self-compassionate, it's also worth your while to take a moment to reflect. This can give you some perspective and can help you learn from what happened. Try to broaden your perspective and remember that while messing up feels awful, it's also something that everyone does from time to time. You can ask yourself questions like, what circumstances or actions led to things going wrong? Is there an opportunity to learn something and move forward? You can write this down, put it on note cards, whatever really speaks to you. Ask yourself, how do I feel? Why do I feel this way? Why am I so worried? Then when you're calmer, you can look at ways to grow. And number 4, connect with others. It's common to feel shame when you fail and to want to hide the mistake from others. But sharing when you've messed up can normalize the experience and strengthen your connections. It's the idea of name it to tame it. Seeing others' resilience can activate your own. It can be particularly powerful when folks in leadership positions share mistakes. In fact, there's a psychological phenomenon called the pratfall effect, in which people who are highly competent and make a mistake are viewed more favorably after a misstep. Sharing requires psychological safety, but when possible, it can be an incredibly powerful way to embrace risk and practice compassion. It's about what we do when things don't work out. We can sit for a moment together and figure things out and learn from failure. We all fail, so there's a sense of community and connection in that experience. It also means that you can't control whether you face a setback, but you can choose how you will respond when it happens, and that's pretty powerful. In a nutshell, this one is all about flipping the script on failure. Instead of seeing it as something to avoid, Emily encourages us to see it as a crucial part of growth. It gives a really helpful reminder that every risk comes with the possibility of failure. Yes, but it also comes with the chance for discovery, learning, and leveling up. It even breaks down how to take safe risks, ones that stretch you without overwhelming you. It's a great push to move from fear-driven decision-making into a mindset of curiosity and growth. Now, we've been talking a lot about writing it down so that you can look at it, you can revisit, and you can really walk through your ideas, challenging yourself. So I want to give you some space, not just to listen, but to process. Because when you're talking about risk, reward, and fear of failure, it's easy to nod along and think, yep, I should work on that. But then life happens and nothing really changes. That's where journaling comes in. Not as homework, not as a Dear Diary moment, but as a quiet way to hear your own thoughts without the noise. It's a pause, a check-in with the part of you that's ready to grow, but maybe hasn't had the mic for a while. So I'm going to give you some prompts. Grab a notebook, open to a blank piece of paper, and let me get you started. Prompt number 1. What risk am I currently avoiding? And what am I afraid might happen if I take it? Let yourself get honest here. Fear of failure, rejection, judgment, losing control. Just name it without trying to fix it yet. Okay, that last one was for me, but you might need it too. Journaling prompt 2. What would success look like if I took that risk and it worked out better than I expected? Describe the best case scenario in detail. Let yourself imagine what's possible instead of defaulting to what could go wrong. Okay, here's one more. What lesson have I learned from a past failure that made me stronger? Think back to something that didn't go the way you hoped, but taught you something important. Remind yourself that you've bounced back before, and you can again. Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a fresh perspective from someone who really knows how to reframe tough topics. Simon Sinek takes on the question, is failure necessary? His answer? It's not just necessary, it's invaluable. He breaks down how failure isn't a stop sign. It's a signal that you're trying, experimenting, stretching, and learning. And honestly, it's the thing that sharpens our process and gives success its meaning. So if you've been hesitant to take a risk for fear of getting it wrong, this might be the perspective shift you need. Let's listen in.
You cannot have innovation or progress without failure. It doesn't exist. And if you truly aren't failing as you're trying to innovate, then you're probably not pushing very hard because you haven't broken anything. You're making very, very safe choices. We could never have put a person on the moon without a bunch of rockets blowing up first. Like, of course. I met a CFO once. I asked him the priorities at the company, and he said, efficiency and innovation. And I laughed and said, well, good luck with that. Innovation is inherently inefficient because it requires experimentation. And experimentation requires failure. much is said about fail fast. I actually don't like the term I think we overuse the term failure. And the problem with the word failure is it's like the word cancer. It's too broad. Like if you have stage 4 liver cancer or you have a mild melanoma, those things are both called cancer, but they are clearly not the same thing. And the same thing is when we hear the word failure. Some people think failure means experimentation, but a lot of people think failure means catastrophe. And so when we tell our company, failure is good, fail fast, that literally scares people. We don't want to fail. So I think we need a new word, right? We want to avoid failure. Failure is catastrophic and it should be avoided. But falling, I think we should encourage. When a kid falls off a bicycle, we didn't tell them they failed. We tell them they fell. And what do we tell them? Get back up and try again. So I don't want to tell people they failed. I want to tell people they fell. And I want to encourage them to try again and brush off their knees. So I think we should fall and fall often. And I will judge the quality of innovation not necessarily by if you fell, but how quickly you can pick yourself back up and try again. What starts to happen is over the course of time, some of the process becomes calcified. And we follow it because we've just always followed it and nobody really knows why it's there. And all it takes is one person to say, can somebody explain to me why we do it this way? And if nobody has an answer, then it's ripe to be changed or at least challenged.
Yeah, why do we have 14 approvals for hiring one person?
Right. Why do we have 14 approvals to hire one person? Right, exactly. Can somebody give me a good reason why we do it this way? We want to double check. We want to double check, meaning you don't trust the people who are making decisions? No, we trust them. Well, then why do you have to double check them? And all of a sudden the argument falls apart.
So if I heard you correctly, the way we prevent this as a 95,000 person team is to have courage to speak up when something doesn't make sense.
The courage to speak up when something doesn't make sense, but also to allow people who question something to give them an open space to feel heard rather than defeated, litigated. And if they have legitimate cause to change the process, but there's still fear to blanketly change it, everywhere, because that might be destructive, to let them experiment on their team with their group and try something new. And if it works, great. Maybe we'll look at it. And if it doesn't work, then it's good. That's fine too. Thank you for testing it for us. It turns out that this process worked well enough. And so it's not just about speaking out. It's also about hearing it and allowing people to even challenge it sometimes if they have a better option. I don't like people who challenge things without a solution. This doesn't work. Great. What should we do? Well, it doesn't work. I got that. What should we do? Different. Got it. What should we do? And I like people to bring ideas.
That's exactly what this Culture Circle's effort is all about, is giving people the power to address their subculture, to pilot ideas that they think will improve our culture.
I love that.
And if they work, we're going to scale it. We're going to do it everywhere. Right?
It's law of diffusion. It's the way you
exactly.
do things. You start with the early adopters, let them, because they don't mind the imperfections. Some of it will come back automatically, interacting with people. We thought it'd be so scary and difficult, but turns out it's okay. I think relearn is the importance of just sort of being around people. I think some of us got good at virtual and being separated. And I think we have to relearn the importance of, having a meeting in person and having a brainstorming in person. The joy of the interaction and interrupting people. You can't interrupt people in flow over Zoom, but you can in a meeting, and it's invigorating. I think unlearn the maybe constant connection, being constantly connected. For some people, they reported working more, not less, during COVID in a virtual scenario. Learning to turn things off. There was something magical about the commute. When you had to go to work and come home from work, it's it gets you ready for the day and it helps you unwind at the end of the day. And we lost the commute, and you start to sort of want it back a little bit. So I think relearn some of the stuff that we used to complain about. It maybe wasn't so bad after all.
If you want to share encouragementology with a friend who needs to know they're not alone in this journey of self-discovery, you can visit encouragementology.com or anywhere you stream your content to receive this episode and all others. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram for additional encouragement throughout the week. So I challenge you, This week, take one risk that's been scaring you, even if it's just a baby step. Whether it's starting that side project, speaking up in that meeting, or taking a leap in your personal life, go for it. Take that step with the confidence that no matter the outcome, you are learning, growing, and moving forward. I know you can do it. Thank you for listening to Encouragementology with Kendall Boyson, where we find positive ways to handle some of life's challenges.
I stumbled through until the path was clear. That's when